What are the political ramifications now that Donald Trump has been convicted on all 34 counts of felony falsification of business records? For one, he can still run for president. For two, if elected president, he could still serve jail time. Those are things that I discussed in my previous video. However, what a lot of the conservative pundits are discussing now is whether or not the Democratic Party should be allowed to use those charges against him, and if that is part of a greater conspiracy. In my previous video, I read aloud the 34 counts of charges of business falsification records, right? Falsification of business records. And that was fairly lengthy. Left a little bit of an itch in my throat afterwards. All 34 counts were found guilty, and there was evidence to go along with them, right? These counts specifically outlined with voucher or check number or what have you. There is no equivocation of the evidence or the legitimacy of the charges. So the fact that the conservative pundit circles are alleging otherwise is in of itself conspiratorial, rather than implying that the Biden administration has somehow coerced the presiding judge and the state of New York into coming up with a guilty verdict for the Donald Trump case. And that's where these things start happening. When you start disregarding facts, reality, when you start to disregard the material evidence of what is legitimately happening, and you start focusing on the emotional responses from one side or the other, that is when you start having a major disconnect in the political processes. And it's why our political processes have been devolving to the degree that they have in recent times. It is less about Republicans versus Democrats, liberals versus conservatives, rather than wars of ideology based on a figurehead, if we're being honest. Joe Biden now represents the Democratic Party. Donald Trump now represents the Republican Party. And it's less about them as individuals and simply the idolatry that they are. And so now it's vote blue no matter who. Biden no matter what. And on the other side, Donald Trump can do no wrong, and Donald Trump we trust. Do you ever hear about Biden's policies? Do you really ever hear about Trump's policies, which you normally hear as rhetoric? No, he's going to make America great again. He already built back better. He's a strong leader. So the political ramifications of the Donald Trump campaign, quite literally, is nothing. There are no ramifications. Nothing has changed. And all of the polling that would suggest otherwise, or that was taken prior to the actual convictions, suggested that this is what would happen. It implied that people who were on the fence about Donald Trump would no longer vote for him if he was found guilty. And what we are seeing is that his polling has actually increased, closing the gap between Biden and Trump from, I believe it was 6 points a few weeks ago, to now only 2 points on national polls. And of course, depending on the poll that you look at, Donald Trump could be ahead. And that's the point. Usually polling has a 4-point differential, meaning it could be correct or incorrect based on 4 percentage points, based on the group and the way they did it, right? So in reality, we have a neck-and-neck race between a convicted felon president and a president who is currently in the process of getting sued for aiding and abetting genocide. If there were political ramifications that needed to be discussed, it would be that. And coincidentally, this video is about that very discussion.